All right. Hi, my name is Michael Whaley, and I'm a candidate for Shelby County Commission in District 5.
Michael, why do you want to be a Shelby County Commissioner?
Well, so the biggest responsibility of the county commission is to fund the schools. It's about $500 million a year, and I'm an educator, so I've spent the last 12 years as a public school teacher, elementary school teacher, and then as a school founder and school leader. And so I think it's time that we had an educator's voice at the table, and that we had some common vision about how we invested the dollars we do invest in education across multiple school districts and systems. I'm a firm believer that if we invest in the quality of our schools and the quality of the programs that our kids are getting, that we're going to help address a lot of the other challenges that I think often get talked about in isolation. My view is that they're all very much connected.
Did teaching bring you to Memphis?
It did. So I came to Memphis 12 years ago with Teach for America, part of our first group of teachers. I honestly thought I'd never do so. Both my parents are educators. My mom was a first grade teacher, my dad a college administrator, and so I think growing up, I swore I wouldn't do it because I was like, I'm paleontologist all the way. But there was something about, I think, the opportunity to be able to serve at a really, just be in the trenches where I think the work really matters the most, that attracted to me to this idea of being a teacher, and ended up staying. And
where did you teach?
Getwell Elementary.
First grade.
I taught second grade and fifth grade.
Nice. Yeah. How long were you teaching?
I taught for 2 years through Memphis City Schools at the time, and then ended up starting my own school, Memphis College Prep, between 2008 and 2010. We launched in 2010 and started with a class of kindergartners, and our mission was to be able to provide a school opportunity where everyone was committed to the same mission, that everyone believed that demographics did not determine destiny, and that all kids had the ability to be successful. And that it was incumbent upon the adults to set those expectations and to create an environment where we supported teachers, we encouraged those that were really committed to the work, and we saw the results with our kids. It's just there's something magical about seeing an incoming kindergartner who's just they are where they are. Unfortunately, in Memphis, too many of our kindergartners are not ready for kindergarten. But regardless of that, we saw how quickly they can catch up even in just that first year, if they're committed to doing that.
Your school is a public charter?
That's right, yes.
So what was it about being in the classroom that made you decide you wanted to start your own school?
I think it was seeing that the challenges that a lot of our students were coming into school with when they were entering in kindergarten. Even though I didn't teach kindergarten, a lot of my colleagues did, and so I would see those kids and get to know those families, and a lot of siblings would be. I would see them in my class, and I saw the deficits that often they were coming in with, which was no fault of their own. I mean, these are 4 and 5-year-olds. It's not their fault that they're not prepared with the necessary word association, letter, sound identification, even identifying their own name. There are often a lot of gaps there, and I felt like, despite what we were seeing, and if we continued to even teach one grade level in a year, those kids would still be behind because they started behind. And you saw a lot of that with when you look at college readiness numbers. Certainly back then, it's gotten a little better, but it's still a challenge that we have. It's like, how many of our kids are ready to go to college, to enter the workforce? It starts, I think, as soon as they get to school. And so I wanted to start Memphis College Prep so that we can create an entire school where we said the path to college begins in kindergarten, and that every child has the opportunity to be successful, regardless of where they live, any kind of income level, racial background, that they had the opportunity to be successful. And it was our responsibility, I think, to provide that. And I tell you, it was a heck of an effort to pull that off, but we did.
Yeah, it sounded like you did.
And
so when people talk to you about schools in Memphis and education in Memphis, and they say things like, why are the schools so bad?
Yeah.
You have insight in this.
Sure, yeah.
What's your response to that kind of
Well, right, and it's often a topic of conversation, and rightfully so. I mean, you get back to, if you just look at the numbers and you look at it from a taxpayer perspective, right? We're investing a lot in our schools, and anyone would rightfully so want to expect results from that. And it's at the end of the day, I mean, there's certainly multiple layers of it, but I think the biggest thing is human capital and leadership. And then the teacher in the classroom that really makes the biggest difference. And do we have school leaders and system leaders and elected officials who understand that leadership really matters, and that we've got to create systems and structures that encourage strong leadership, that encourage retention of our best teachers, and supports them in the ways that they really need support. And it's not just one thing. I mean, I think often the first thing that gets thrown out is compensation, and like, well, if we pay our teachers more, that'll lead to better results. And I think that's a part of it, but we also have to look at how the leadership of our schools are supporting our teachers, developing them professionally, ensuring that it's a sustainable profession. We're not overworking them to where they burn out after a few years. And so those are some of the strategies that I think I'd love to see across Shelby County. I mean, not just with Shelby County schools, but now with the 6 municipal districts. Like, how do we double down on talent, which I think grows more talent, and ultimately think about building that within our community, folks that are already here, but also thinking about how do we attract folks into Memphis. But the only reason they're going to stay is if they feel supported.
In your experience, do you think the struggling schools need more resources, not just maybe more talent, but more resources for each classroom, for each teacher?
Yeah, I looked at some of the kind of statewide education funding formulas recently, and generally it's equally divided between the county and the state. And if you look at it across the state, the state has done a reasonable job with how funding is distributed in terms of equity, but that's still something that's really important to ensure that the kids that need the most support get the most support, that it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? You can't say, well, everyone gets the exact same, when you might have communities that have let's say a higher tax base, are able to support additional resources, and you have those that are not. In my mind, that doesn't mean that someone should get a better quality education than the person that doesn't. And so I think the opportunity is certainly still there to ensure we have more equity in our educational system. That said, I think that's got to come with accountability to getting results, because I've seen it. It's possible. We did it on less dollars than what traditionally is expended. But I can speak to the fact that it is very much important to have those additional resources to be able to meet the needs of many of the students that we're serving within the city of Memphis that might be experiencing adverse childhood experiences, other forms of trauma that need to be addressed in the form of wraparound services, social workers, counselors that are licensed and trained, so that the teachers can really do their job educating in the classroom.
So what can you do on the Shelby County Commission about this? The Shelby County school system is sort of a separate entity. They have their own superintendent, their own board, funding mechanisms.
And along with the 6 municipalities, right? They've got their own leadership structures, and so the county commission is responsible for funding all of them, and that's the one common variable, right, in all of this, is that all these school systems and districts are funded by the Shelby County Commission. And so my vision for that is that we need to start by getting everyone at the same table and having a common vision for what success looks like in Shelby County. It shouldn't be 7 or 8 different metrics of what success is. That if we're, as the common variable of the investor in our schools, we should be setting the bar as to what, or helping bring folks to the table to collectively set the bar for what success looks like and what we expect from education in our community. So that's the first thing, is that we need to make sure that that happens. One of the things that I often hear when the conversation of education comes up around, and this might not be the most popular opinion, but I believe it, and so I'm going to say it, is that often I hear about what county commissioners or what elected officials can't do, right? They like to talk about, well, we can't do that, we can't do this, and quite frankly, I mean, I'm more interested in what we can do to ensure that we're investing in the quality of our schools. And what we can do is go out and visit the schools. What we can do is convene the school leaders from all these different municipalities and Shelby County schools and get them at the same table. What we can do is help, lend our expertise in what, in how education fits in with all the other priorities we have, and make sure that like we're getting everyone together. So I think there's opportunities to do more and to be better informed about how we're investing in our schools. I'd just like to see that happen.
Yeah, so you were part of Teach for America.
That's right.
Yeah. What did you learn from Teach for America that you think would benefit you as a commissioner?
Gosh, so this was 12 years ago that I started, and I think the biggest thing I learned was that we have a lot of challenges within our educational system, and the second thing I learned is it's really hard. It's really hard. You can't just have a quick political fix, I don't think. I think you have to really understand the nuances and the challenges that go into it, and be willing to learn from others, and know and have humility and like know what you don't know. There are certainly many things that I am not an expert in, but I think it's incumbent upon someone that wants to serve their community to continue to learn, and be as informed as possible to make the best decisions for your community. I was very grateful for that program. I mean, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have been here. I wouldn't have ended up starting a school, and I certainly wouldn't be sitting here today. I don't know where I'd be, but I'm grateful for that opportunity, and certainly.
Tell me about the school you're schooled.
Sure. So Memphis College Prep is a kindergarten through 5th grade elementary charter school, and our mission is college graduation, right? So we're saying, as soon as you walk through these doors, we have your eyes set on college attainment, and you see that in the halls with college pennants through the hallway, but it mostly shows up.
So it's a charter school, so you haven't had problems with your funding and being recertified and everything?
So most of our funding comes through the same sources as a traditional district school, as a public school. Okay. So we get public funding as a public school, and although if you added it all up and you kind of compared it to the average per pupil expenditure for a traditional district school, we're at about 75% of what a traditional school would see, and that's due to it's due to different bonds that the school district is able to acquire. It's also due to different capital improvement dollars that are sent through the district and then may or may not come through to the individual schools. And so to make up that gap, we have to fundraise and be able to support the program with those that support our mission and what we're doing.
How long have you lived in District 5, and what can you tell us about the district? What are the concerns and priorities?
So I've now the boundaries changed a bit ago, but I've lived in the area since 2008 in the general area, Poplar Highland, Walnut Grove Highland, and the biggest part of our campaign is getting out and meeting neighbors and residents and voters of District 5, because I think a big part of the reason why I decided to run for this office is that I really got tired of seeing the same names on the ballot year after year and kind of getting the same results. And it was very, very much seemed like it was more about serving one's political career than it was about listening to our community. And so our campaign is all about putting community first and going out and listening to what is on the minds of folks that just live in the neighborhood. And so some of the things that I've really heard two major things that kind of come up, and there's always a lot of different priorities, but two things have really jumped up above all else, and this isn't through a poll or anything, this is just what I hear from people. First is education, and the second is public safety and crime. And quite frankly, those are very much interconnected, and I think we need elected leaders that are willing to admit that and understand that if we're going to get serious about crime and public safety, we've got to get really serious about how we invest in preventing crime, which a big part of that is addressing issues around poverty and education. The quality of the opportunities we're giving kids from a young age. And that really resonates with a lot of folks across our district that span the political spectrum. We have a really unique district in that it's I would argue a politically even district, and so folks are generally tired of like the deep partisan politics that we've seen, and that fits me really well because I am too.
So there are a lot of ways to contribute to your community. One way is to start a school.
Yeah.
Another way is to run for office. Is there anything in your background, your parents, or anything, your experience growing up that sort of led you to decide to run for public office as a way to do that?
No.
This is all new.
This is all new. This is new in the Whaley household, right? No, we've never had anyone. My grandmother just had her 93rd birthday yesterday,
Wow.
and so I want to be like her when I grow up. But she is overjoyed with the fact that we have a Whaley that's thrown his name in, thrown their name in the hat to run for office. I just never. It's such a different space, right? But I think it's time that we, public office and public service gets back to focusing on community service, right? Like we should have folks that have done, community service, that have different perspectives, and that from time to time, I think fresh leadership is important, and so that gives me some confidence, and also hearing that from a lot of voters that they want something new, and we'll see.
Was there a particular moment or instant or something that happened that said, now's the time, now this is what I need?
Yeah, so I left the day-to-day operations of my school about 2 years ago. And so for the past 2 years, I've led an education nonprofit. It's a national nonprofit, but I've started up the chapter here in Memphis called Leadership for Educational Equity. And our mission is to help current and former teachers get a seat at the table where decisions are made that are impacting their kids. Because often those decisions, as we know, are made by political figures that really are out of touch with what's really going on. And what a crazy idea to have an educator helping to make decisions about their classrooms in the educational system. And so I've really enjoyed that work and get a lot of energy from a lot of these teachers. I see myself in a lot of them, and some of them are in just their first years teaching and are wanting to get involved in a positive way. And so that's given me the space to be able to observe our political system more over the last couple of years. And part of that observation has been this aura of divisiveness and everyone going into their camps and saying, it's kind of my way or the highway, and nothing gets done. Like we spend more time yelling at each other than actually accomplishing things. And I just think it's time for change. Like we can't keep doing that and expect to move forward if all we're going to do is yell political slurs at people, right? Like that's just not. I don't think that's what the folks that elected them really want. And I could just speak for myself personally as someone that votes and contributes taxes, and I'd rather my representatives work to move our community forward than work to try to fight with each other. So that's really kind of what I was like, we've got to do something. And it's so easy to get distracted by national politics, but you know what? Like the way you make a difference is by starting small and starting in your local community. And you can't get much more local than a county commission district that you can see every part of and get to know a lot of new people.
What have you learned about yourself by campaigning?
That's a great question. I get at first I was kind of nervous. Well, I was nervous. I still am nervous, but I think nervous about a lot of aspects of it because it's so new. I've never done it before. But one of the things that's really surprised me and that I've learned a lot about is that I get a lot of energy from meeting new people and connecting over things I never thought we would have connected over. Right? We would have probably never met had it not been for me stopping by and introducing myself and hearing more about the stories of different folks and they want to tell you about, they had a great grandmother that was an educator, and come in and see a picture. It's just great. Like, I mean, that gives me a lot of energy, and it makes you want to keep going. Right? When you just hear these stories of folks that just want something good for their community. Right? They might not have kids in the, I tell them I'm an educator. Like, they might not have kids in the school system or have much connection to it, but they understand the importance of investing in what's good in our community, making it better, making it a great place to live, ensuring we're focusing on creating great schools and great neighborhoods, and those are the things that people value. So that's something I've learned.
Has campaigning had an impact on how you view the community?
So one of the things that also comes up is that it seems that, and I'm not surprised by this necessarily, but it seems that most people are just unaware of, one, there's an election coming up. That's the first thing. And much about the candidates who are running. And that they often say, it's like, gosh, I don't hear anything about the election until 3 days before the election. I think that's something we should change. I mean, I'd like to involve more people in the process, not less. And so we really made an effort in our primary election. We really made an effort to reach out to more people, bring them into the process, encourage them to vote, listen to their thoughts than who might have normally voted in a May county primary election. And we saw turnout more than double from the last time we had an election in 2014. Mm-hmm. And so we'd like that to continue in August and continue beyond that, is that we just need more folks to vote. I mean, that's one of your biggest civic responsibilities. But I think it's the responsibility of those that are serving in the office to inform voters about these things that are coming up, and ensure that we get more, because I think more people participating is better no matter who they vote for. Like, it's good. We've kind of got it inverse. Like, more people vote in presidential elections, which is obviously very important. But I would argue that you have your voice makes a bigger difference in a local election. That same vote has a bigger impact in your day-to-day life by getting involved and understanding what's happening at a local level.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.